Hey Natsumi, want to hear some cool stuff about math? I'm gonna give you the knowledge of the rules of exponents.
The rules of exponents were created with the help of Archimedes, a Greek mathematician and astronomer who was born around 280 BC. His mathematical discoveries helped to shape the rules of exponents. When it comes to exponents, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are different than the way it's done with whole numbers, thus the reason we turn to the rules of exponents. The first rule is the zero exponent rule. Whenever any number is set to the power of 0, it's always 1. Second is the power rule. This is the rule of multiplying exponents. This says that to raise a power to a power, you need to multiply the exponents. Third is the negative exponent rule. This says that the negative exponents in the numerator get moved to the denominator and become positive exponents. Negative exponents in the denominator get moved to the numerator and become positive exponents. You only move the negative exponents. By flipping them, they become positive. Next up is the product rule. In the product rule, this says to multiply two exponents with the same base. You keep the base and add the powers. Lastly is the quotient rule. This says that to divide two exponents with the same base, you keep the base and subtract the powers. This is similar to reducing fractions. When you subtract the powers, put the answer in the numerator or denominator depending on where the higher power was located. If the higher power is in the denominator, put the difference in the denominator and vice versa. This will help to avoid negative exponents. Now here's an example. So here's our first problem. Our first problem is a squared b to the fourth and c in parentheses to the negative second times a b to the squared c to the squared. So our first step is to take care of the parentheses. So when you have a power to a power, in this case, it's this parentheses is all to the power of negative 2, you add the exponents. A squared minus 2 simply is just a. B to the fourth plus negative 2 is 2. And c minus 2 is c to the negative 2. Now when you have exponents multiplied by each other, this is the power rule, you add the exponents with the same bases. So your final answer is a squared b to the fourth and c. So now we have our second problem, and our second problem is going to be 3x to the 4, y to the negative 2, all in the parentheses to the negative third, over 2x to the third, y to the second, in parentheses, to the negative second. So our first rule is that we have to get rid of the parentheses. So you're going to add that negative 3 to everything. So it becomes 3 to the negative third, x to the negative 12th, and y to the 6th. And you're going to get rid of the parentheses on the bottom as well. So for the denominator, it's going to become 2 to the negative second, x to the negative 6th, and y to the negative 4th. So now you have a lot of negative exponents, and this is where our next rule, the negative exponent rule, comes in. You're going to flip everything. So all the negative exponents on the numerator will go to the denominator, and all the negative exponents on the denominator will go to the numerator. So this is when the last rule comes in, the quotient rule. So now you'll subtract the smaller bases from the bigger bases. And if you multiply out the whole numbers, you should be left with 4 in the numerator over 27 x to the 6th and y to the 2nd.